Okay, you know what's cool about Alaris is being Arizic is great, right? Look, we're doing a whole presentation with the basics here. So Eris, um, empiricism. This is the right one. Is it? All right. Put that upside down a little bit. Okay. Empiricism, reason, imagination, skepticism. Okay, and that's great. You know what's even better? Alaris. What's the first letter? What's A? The first, what, as a number? One, okay. And then there's an L for you. A little bit backwards. The heiress. Okay. I don't actually know how to bridge these characters. Okay, this is Arabic, right? Okay. Alaris is when you actually apply those principles to either your evaluation of something or a communication. So a dialaris, a monalaris, or a dialaris. Okay. So that's kind of cool. Okay. If then. So let's see. Let's see whether. Been recording for 2 minutes. Let's see whether in 8 minutes we can do. Let's say we have. Oh, gosh, I don't know. Oh, that is the right black marker. Shit. Okay. What are some things that we have? Because this is right now what we're about to do. So we're kind of brainstorming about our self-awareness text or test. Uh, so we're just going to keep that in mind. SATI, which is of course part of our SASSY project. SASSY being self-awareness street interviews, SATI being self-awareness test and inquisition, whatever. Okay, great. So we're going to try to keep some of these things in mind as useful things for those things. All right, so SATI. So sassy SATI. Brainstorm. I'm gonna forget what SATI is. Self awareness test slash no uh, teach slash inquisition maybe. Okay. Okay. So. All right. Here's what I got to ask you to do for me. If you want to learn this, we're not in debate right now. Okay. I want you to just believe me, basically, and I think you'll find good reason to. Um, and this sounds really silly, but just because the things I'm going to explain are kind of really counterintuitive, so you just won't even be able to really engage with this stuff, so long as you keep listening to your counter arguments. Write them down or something, maybe. But so basically, first thing about it theory. Basically, what I'm asking you to do is forget about the Warsaw illusions. So the Warsaw illusions. Okay. Um, they're less and less well defined now, but Warsaw stands for, I mean, it's Warsaw, but Warsaw is easier to say, and that's where I came up with it. So, will, integration, reason, single operator, single observer, which honestly, that's kind of like integration, those two. So yeah, so anyway, let's keep with the Warsaw illusions. There's all these illusions that minds have about themselves. Okay, one illusion that we have is that we like aren't part of the fabric of the universe, and so we don't need causes to produce effects. Um, so that we can initiate a behavior from within, and that it's not that behavior, as we saw earlier, was triggered by the conditions. I mean, the conditions triggered the system, which triggered behavior. We imagine that we can have an origin point in the system, or that like if we can say something, if we have a statement of a desire, then stating that desire. Oh, interesting. This is definitely a part of free will. This idea of first cause. Um, but we also think that if someone can like say this is what I should do, then they should be able to like do it. And we're confused when we see people with ADHD. That would actually be more of integration. So integration is a component of the free will illusion. Anyway, this is just a bag of illusions, all right? I don't know how to organize them within the bag. Integration is the idea that every it is connected to every other it, simply put. And this comes from entire integration. Okay? It's not even possible. Remember those streams we were looking at? It's not, and that's something that we talked about. We said that just because you know that, for instance, a question mark is not like a bad symbol, that it in your mind that identified as not a bad symbol doesn't necessarily interact with your evaluations of the person. So there was another it that goes, well, if there's a face tattoo, then that's bad. And that didn't get opt by actually that particular symbol is okay, because they're not all connected. Okay, so that's integration. Reason, if we define reason as correct treatment of information, or that can be objectives as well. Let's just say call them infobjectives. And so it can be input to the system, right? It can include in-livers, or it can just be, other correctly treating yields from deliveries from its within the system. That's impossible to always be able to always be prepared to do. You can ultimately correctly go from the information to a correct conclusion, a correct judgment. But you can't be pre-programmed, because that would mean complete calibration. That the way the system is that every possible piece of information gets treated as it should. Some information we've never encountered, and then also lots of information that we have encountered, you just can't evolve all those things to have an it or a soup it that perfectly handles that. So we have a bunch of heuristics, a bunch of its that we evolved with that are calibrated well enough for us to be having this conversation, for us to be alive, for that phone to exist, and so on. But you can't have complete calibration. So, when people say, "Oh, but you're a reasonable, intelligent human being," so if you have this input, then you should know that output. You should always be getting to that output. But no, that's an illusion. Single operator that we saw in that MapIT earlier. There wasn't like a little dude in there through a node it through which everything passed. Sometimes the X livery came from this stream, sometimes it came from that stream, right? Sometimes the X livery was this SUSIT or that SUSIT. So there's not a single operator. As David Eagleman says, there are many hands on the steering wheel of behavior. Many pairs of hands. Single observer, same basic thing. Okay, there's not a single node it through which everything passes. There are certain node its where a lot of things pass, since we have a certain unity of some aspects of our experience, and because we tend to assume that what we experience is all that there is, well, we think that we're experiencing everything, and so we think that we are this observer. So there's no single that. And then also because the streams are different, well, the reactions are different. So it's another thing about not being a single observer is that you don't always have the same reactions to yourself. You don't always have the same paradigm. Depends on the stream that livered. Okay. So hopefully that is convincing enough for you to be like, okay, because these things all did seem, I'm speaking as you, these things all seemed true to me and worth considering, but maybe some of the things Eris has said here show that these aren't guaranteed like I thought. So let's pretend like these things are false for this conversation, okay? Now I'm going to explain. So part of it theory are the Warsaw illusions, identifying what the illusions are. Another part of it theory are the components of, or the categories sort of what makes up critical thinking we talked about. The 4 CRs. Okay. Okay. Oh shit. I don't know whether you could actually even see. God damn it. Hopefully you could see enough. Okay. Right, we're keeping that in mind. But see, there are things that there are knowledge pieces, things like critical, blah, blah. Those things aren't going to be on the test. But things like knowing that those things are illusions, those things do need to be on the test. I don't know how. Can you just ask, like, hey, is free will real? Or explain how free will might not be real or something. I don't know. Okay, let me blow my nose real quick. So I ask you to put aside your interpretations. Right, another part of the Warsaw, maybe it's one of those things, is naive realism, the idea that you perceive the world as it is, or that you perceive yourself as it is, or that the way you perceive yourself or the world are reliable. The censor myth, I call that. Sounds like I repeated myself, and maybe I did, and I think in some videos I have been able to disambiguate naive realism and censor myth. But anyway, okay, so I want you to put all that aside. Imagine, you know what? How about this? Don't put it aside for your own self-image. You are an angel. I am an angel. If we agree, and then if not, okay, no, I'm not. But let's assume that we are an angel. We have free will, reason, all this stuff, and we're just going to talk about an animal for a little bit. And animals, of course, we mustn't personify, right? Morgan's canon, right? Those things that can be attributed to us angels, like intention, intelligence, stuff like that, those can't be attributed to animals. Free will, stuff like that. You have all those things, sure, sure, sure. You're an angel, but 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 I want to talk to you about an animal though. Okay. So, all right. First of all, so what we're kind of talking about is evolution here. Let's call this section evolutionary biology. Okay. Some point, some atoms. Okay. This is my evidence for it theory. Atoms. You with me so far? Okay. Some of those atoms would come together. Yeah. Go from atoms, boop, 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 to molecules. Okay. And then we go to like, okay, evolutionary biology isn't actually my thing. So this part, I don't know. But basically we got proteins. Okay. Bunch of molecules. Okay. We had to zoom out for scale so you don't see all the atoms anymore. In each one, you got some atoms, got some molecules, also got some proteins. And now we got complexity where these things are able to like bump into each other and cause, and other things then happen and results happen. Just like when atoms were bumping into each other and forming molecules, bonds, and all that shit. Well, now you've got all that potential, but on these big structures, lots of different ways that they can interact. You know, here it's simple. If force, a physical force applied, then move. Okay? Or if energy, then move. Okay? On this scale, we've got like, we can have things like, I don't know, if attraction, no, if, yeah, if a certain kind of attraction, this is not my field, then bond. Okay? On this, now it gets really complicated. We've got like, if, yeah, if like it fits, no, I mean, no, I can't even write it. It's too complicated. It's like if this particular ligand and this, fits, then, move these other atoms, energy moves, and blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how to do that. Okay. And then you've got like cells, organs. Okay. Let's say you've got cells. Okay. Okay, these are two cells here, and they might not look like cells to you, but hold on. Or actually, if you're watching this, you probably do you know what I'm talking about? So we've got cells, right, composed of all of these proteins and molecules, whatever. Okay, and basically, if a little atom binds to that, it's going to open an ion channel. It's going to be an exchange of positive and negative ions, blah, 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 blah. If that happens, then it's going to cause a domino effect here, and some little atoms and molecules are going to be released there. Okay? So if a specific key goes into one of the locks, lots of little locks along here, if a key gets received here, It's going to cause the reaction, and it's going to send out keys to the next guy. Okay. So okay. Okay. So then lock. Oh, look, that key that fits in that lock. Oh, sending keys to the next guy. Okay. All right. So these are neurons, brain cells. Okay. So if neurotransmitter from here, then some neurotransmitter to there. Okay. And you see the resemblance, right? If you imagine the brain, and it's just these things stacked on top of each other in 3D space, right? Um, you know, Google neurons or something, see a little image. It's not gonna be, of course, what it looks like. I mean, they're packed in, so you wouldn't be able to see, but Anyway, so they're all blah 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 blah. Sorry, that's not communication. Those are actual neurons. Ba 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 ba. Okay, so that one triggers that one, triggers that one, triggers that one, blah, blah, blah. Okay? All right, so I think that was useful. Cause and effect, baby. Whether it's on some atoms bumping into each other or some atoms bumping into some receptors and triggering the release of some more atoms, which bump into some more receptors. It's always about if then. Okay? Cause and effect. Okay? All right. Now, it's really hard for us to imagine, but remember, we're not going to trust our silly neurons. We're going to trust the research more. Somehow, for billions of years, it went from like this to this. Okay? Over a billion years. Okay? Probably like 2 or 3, right? Billion years. Well, maybe it like got to like cells. I actually don't really know what the timeline was. But anyway. Okay. Some point in 4.5 billion years. And if we're talking about, what kind of animal do you want to talk about, by the way? I just said we're going to talk about an animal. So these are the neurons, the brain cells of an animal. Let's just imagine a very simple mammal, like 200 neurons or something, not including the muscle nerves and stuff, or sensory, okay? But just the interpretation it, not the ex-livering it, not the in-livery processing it, but just the sit stem here, the interpretation is. Okay. Oh, by the way, to convince you that this is important, Robert Provine, a neuroscientist, said that sensation and perception are like the most important things to study. It's literally the basis of everything. It's true, but I think it's the little tiny basis, and then this is the real thing. The interpretation is. Okay, yeah, you touch here. There's that tactile thing caused this, blah blah. Okay, fine. But what's really interesting on what happens with that information in here. So the interpretation is. So yes. By the way, I was thinking about if I were to write a book explaining the world to someone, I couldn't because I don't know much about the world. But one thing that I would imagine is that how the order might go. First chapter, sensation and perception. You learn some basic biology, some basic chemistry, some basic, biophysics. Well, you don't know. Fuck physics. You don't need that for the basics. Because we have a lot of the physical principles that you interact with on a daily basis are programmed into us, or at least enough. So, but what is not programmed into us is an understanding of biology. Some basic stuff, but not like actually, because we were constantly encountering physical principles in our evolution, not constantly dissecting and looking at bodies. Okay. So anyway, so in this part, you learn about sensation perception, and you're going to get some biology, some anatomy, some evolution, blah, blah. And then you move into this part. This is like the preface, really. No, okay. Chapter 1. Chapter 2, your interpretations. Then, after you've learned about what happens to shit that goes into your mind, and how it leads to the shit and the feelings and all that comes out, then now you can actually take in information. If you didn't believe this stuff, okay, you can go back and look at this stuff now. You didn't believe that motor neurons were a real thing. You thought it was the ether or the life fluid. Just had to buy it long enough to learn about this. Then you realize, oh, so that's why I think it's some magical thing, because my interpretations didn't evolve with the information we have about the body today. I see. Okay, let me learn about that again. And if you accept that, then your next step, it can be whatever. It can, this is basically psychology, sensation and perception, and like interpretation. Okay. All right. Once you've got that, you need to learn logic and science. Okay. Because here you're getting your critical recognition, and here you're getting some of the beginning tools for critical reflection and critical research. Okay, now you're properly ready to learn. So like this should be high school. Sensation and perception, that can be in, before you're a teenager. Or, before you're 14 maybe. Then this would be high school. Getting critical recognition by learning how the mind works. Then learning how a better way to think, or things to look out for. And then learning a good way to get information from the world, science, and so on. Okay. You're not learning facts from science. You're learning about the scientific method. You're practicing it. You're building sort of those instincts and that a very unnatural but necessary dependence on empiricism, so that you're not in 2024 getting blocked by me because you're like, oh, well, yeah, but, scientific information, that's one approach or whatever. Okay? Not that you care personally. Well, if you're still watching, you wouldn't want to be bugged. Anyway, that's not the reason. Anyway, so you're getting your critical reflection, critical research tools here, and information showing the benefits of what happens when we discover and at some point, in this part, you'll be learning all about the religious wars, all about the different wars, because people didn't know logical principles, didn't even have this, and didn't give a shit about sort of truth and facts. All right, now you're ready to go to college, and now, you've been taking classes here and there and other stuff, but now, and math is going to be in there, but it's not a part of this. But a little history, sure. But then you go and do your major. Now you're ready to really go learn about geopolitics, about medicine, about whatever you want, because now your mind is ready. Got ready in high school. In fact, that's what a college entrance exam should be. Just testing for the 4 R's. Critical recognition. Oh, and so then we'll put dialectics here as well. Communication. Well, you'll have a dialectics class, but also at this point, you're also communication, bro. That's something that it's not part of what I would contribute, but of course, communication is essential in high school. Learn how to communicate. You have to have one language that you've learned super fucking well. And that can be your mother tongue. Fucking learn it well so that you have ways of expressing yourself. And then just all about the communication sciences and stuff. And then, of course, you're going to have a class that's about logical communication. You're going to have a class that's about scientific communication. Yeah, there you go. All right, good. So somebody go work on that. How we're going to do, somebody redo high school. All right, we got a little bit sidetracked there. Excuse me. All right, so we were talking about this animal here. And I don't know what animal we were doing, but this animal basically, you know how like a plant has some very basic its. If sun, um, then move, bitch. Then trope, bitch. Okay. So there's that it, right? We wouldn't say that a plant has a brain in the sense we typically use the word, but there are a lot of its. It does have a sit stem. Everything has a sit stem. You could say that the sit stem of this is if gravity then fall, or whatever. Okay. Anyway, so one of the processing its of a plant is like if sun, then move toward that bitch, um, or wilt or whatever. Okay. So plants have sit stems. They have ways that they treat conditions, and there are conditions, consequence. Okay, all right, good. So they're super simple. And then you can do something that like moves a little critter. Okay, and that's like if I feel something here, then there is an object here. If there is an object here, then move towards it. So we're getting a little bit more complicated, right? This thing can increase exponentially, right? Or whatever word I should use. Um, when you have one it, that's it. You have a system that only responds to one condition and always produces one consequent. If you have two its, you've got two conditions that you can respond to, and two possible consequences. Now, if you have three its, whoa, so this dude could have an effect on this dude who has an effect on this dude. This dude could just straight up have an effect on this dude. Of course, there's top bottom processing as well. So this dude can have a thing on this dude, which has a thing on this dude, and the behavior ultimately comes from this dude, or can come from this dude, come from this dude. Whoa, this is starting to get really, there are lots of different possibilities of outputs, of yields, of exliveries, of consequence. Okay, so let's just get super, super calm. Now you imagine no, sorry, not you and I, we're angels, but humans, they start off with 100 billion. Shit. They 100 billion neurons. Not to mention a trillion support cells. And we don't really know how extensive their role is. But it should definitely affect the streams. So this is whoa, because we just saw with three. I mean, you could take of that as well. No, it was three its, which themselves would be multiple neurons to have the nuances that they need. Um, but even still, I'm still thinking, you know, a useful reference list of its would be like 10,000 its. Okay, which may be stupid, but we won't be able. We can't publish millions and millions and millions of its. And there are lots of its that are just the sum of other its. So anyway, so we can imagine a pretty complicated system, a treatment of inputs. Can imagine something pretty complicated, nuanced. Okay. Shit, what can you see? Oh, great. So that's pretty neat. So I feel like that can slap some intuitive understanding of how there might exist an animal that just through its it is able to produce some absolutely fantastic things. Not you and me, no, you and I, we're humans, you know. I mean, we're angels. We have free will, we have reason, all that stuff. You know, you can't just reduce us to those things. But some animals, but animals you can. Beasts you can. Okay, animals you can. Because you know, if we don't, I mean, the world is real. There's real things in the world. Watch this. Cause and effect. Parts, components, systems. It's real, and you can imagine. This is not a human brain. This is an animal brain. You can imagine some auditory information lands here and here. And then wait, hold on. Well, I don't actually know. Where does it land? Well, it goes to the thalamus in the center, which shoots it to here. And then wherever it lands, so it goes to the thalamus, and it also goes to the inferior colliculus. So this is our origin. Goes there, goes there, goes there, goes there. Goes get some more processing in the limbic system. And then goes to Broca's, and speech is produced. So a question was asked. No, sorry, not a question. A bark was heard. Okay, goes to the sensory relay station, which goes to some language, bark sound processing, some auditory processing. Goes to sensory relay station. Goes to some, upper processing, auditory processing, which then sends it to some other areas, which gets some input from the, it has some effect here, and then boom, Broca's produces a certain kind of bark. Okay. There you go. Actually, what else is there to say? I don't think I've ever explained it that way. But I feel convinced. Convinced of what? That's all that if-then theory is. Okay? If-then theory is just that the mind is worth considering as a sum of its. It is useful to think of the mind as a sum of its, and to identify those different its. Boop, 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 boop. Okay? Now we know a lot of these. Okay? So I feel like I've done it, haven't I? I feel like I've explained it. I mean, the rest I think intuitively just is happening for you, right? So let's not don't talk about consciousness and intuition and so on. There are some of these, maybe some people might say consciousness is the claustrum. Okay, so it's a little area of the map, and any it's activated in here. Any it's activated in here are experienced by the system, or by the. I don't know. Okay, I don't know, but we don't need to know because we're not talking about angels. We're talking about animals. Okay. And when you're studying an animal, even honestly, between you and me, between the angels, we could never observe or prove the experience thing anyway, so we can learn a lot about psychology without needing to worry about that. In any case, what consciousness is not is a dude running around in your head, seeing everything, controlling things, going, oh, you know what? Actually, let's move that and let's put that up there. Okay? No such dude. All right. That's one of the Warsaw illusions. So, I mean, that's it. That's all the theory is. So, is it based on research? Yes. Like, everything I've said seemed to me, at least, to be based on our very most basic understanding of the world. I know it's counterintuitive, so most people don't want to see the mind as this. Oh, you know when I said I was talking about animals? I wasn't talking about you. You're an angel. But I was talking about all those fleshy bipedals you see. Um, where if you hit them over the head and you damage in it, there's some serious damage to what comes out. And there's nothing that you can't damage because they're physical things. Though these animals, these Homo sapiens, they're real things. This is all biological. We saw the neurons. Okay, so for those humans, again, not you. For those humans, you've got ears and you've got a mouth, right? Things go into the ears, get processed, and in here there's something that pulls the mouth strings. Okay, and you can take away speech. You can take away speech understanding. You can make someone so that they can only just speak gibberish, or maybe even they can only sing. Split brain patients, they can't say what they want, but they can sing. You can change their wants. You can change their likes. You can change whether they can see, whether they have fear. All of that is, you can change what their experience. You can change their emotions through biological means, whether it's blunt force trauma or the introduction of certain chemicals. Have you ever heard of drugs? You know those drugs that you take, Angel? Well, on humans, they have a biological effect. I know you've always been wondering, hey, I'm a soul, so how do those drugs affect me? It's because, well, I don't know, but for humans, it's because they are those little atoms and molecules, and so they're going to be activating different streams than would have been activated otherwise. And so then the application of this is, one is humility. You're an angel, but if you can convince some humans that they are this, they might start believing a little less in the output. And I go, oh shit, but but this arrangement here, it's probably not perfect. Where'd it come from? Oh, it came from evolution with energy efficiency in mind. So not just what's beneficial, but first of all, what happens, right? So it has to, first of all, have accidentally happened. So there's certain capacities, but it's like that can't just like, I mean, over time with lots of little things happening. But we think that because now we can talk about reason, that all the reason faculties somehow evolved. Anyway, energy efficiency, survival and reproduction, and prosociality. So here are some principles of our evolution, right? Things that are energy efficient are favored, just they're more likely to happen and be able to stick around. This tends to be the goal. That's what genes are. Genes exist because they continued to exist, because they reproduced. And then for the human animal and angels, of course, but angels don't have brains, they're souls, or they have brains, but they're mostly souls. Or no, they don't even have brains, right? Yeah. Prosociality, that's, so, there's a community aspect. It's not just survival and reproduction, the individual, typically. So we've evolved with a lot of willingness to sacrifice, for instance, because we have had a pretty pro-social recent evolution. And lots of animals have. So with this stuff in mind, first of all, Occam's razor. If you're ever wondering, trying to speculate a MapIT, remember that energy efficiency. So if you can arrive at the same behavior in 3 parts, for example, barring, or you can do it in 7 parts, all other information is equal, 3 parts is probably what would be more representative of the biology. Any it that you can identify that would be useful for our survival in the past, not today. Environment's wildly different. We're still alive, but barely. But it's especially useful. I mean, you can think of it today as well, but especially useful if you look at the conditions of our adapted period. Because right now we're in a demand period where we're change, cultural and genetic change is necessary in order to be able to be good. Right now we are not good. Anyway, so if you identify in it, they're like, oh yeah, I see how in blank situation that would increase the chances of survival or reproduction, or the survival and reproduction of the community, and is more energy efficient than the other its I was speculating, then okay, that might be an it in the system. Still don't know how to ask people about this. All right, what else do you want to talk about? Anything else, bro? I'm tired. We've made a lot of videos where we've worked with ChatGPT on trying to turn the fallacies. But just, does that settle the question? Is it theory based on research? Yes. And also but there are parts of it theory that like establish that certain things are an illusion. Now that's not based on research. It's based on the fact that there isn't research to support the illusions. There isn't research to support the idea of free will, of rationality in a total sense, of a single observer, of a single operator, integration. There's no research to suggest those things. So I got lucky because I didn't have to, because if this is a cool discovery, I got lucky that I didn't have to. I learned a ton about the brain in order to realize that out of all that research there's about the brain, there's none going, oh yeah, look, free will, blah, blah. So the list is based on research without being, it's a list of illusions. It's a list of negations. It's not a list of affirmations. Only affirmations can be based on research. But it's a list of negations of certain affirmations because those affirmations are not based on research. Um, um, and when you look at it, I think as the way I've explained, it's just like, yeah. I mean, obviously, you're not even adding anything, Eris. But the implications are kind of huge because we have a lot of intuitions that are very wrong about this stuff. So that's why it frustrated me. It can sometimes frustrate me when my dad asks whether it's based on research. It's like, sorry, is the idea that the universe happens through cause and effect, is that based on research? Yeah, I guess kind of the most fundamental research in general. Oops, sorry, shit. Oh, sorry, buddy. So yeah, conditions to consequences. I guess that's based on research. Is it based on research that the mind is composed of thousands upon thousands of these input-output mechanisms? Yeah, we've known about neurons for a while. Is it based on evidence that the arrangement of this happens according to like genetic mutation, protein neural development? Yeah, yeah. Since like what's Mendel or whatever? Is it is there research to show that like our past environment and how biology works and changes could explain the arrangement of our mechanisms? Yeah, yeah. Darwin did that. We just weren't ready to accept that about the mind. We accepted about everything else. Um, I mean, what is there that wouldn't be based on research? Or, I mean, research that we've all had for a long time. That humans are biological, is that based on research? It's almost based on the definition, but yeah, no. It's based on research. We like looked and we saw, oh, cells, and oh, when it can't eat or when it can't make energy, it stops functioning. So there's biological life. Oh, carbon or whatever makes something biological. Yeah, it's based on research. Is it based on research that like a lot of these its are not actually advantageous? Yeah, logicians and that now psychologists have been identifying, biases and fallacies for hundreds of years now. I mean, the Greeks were talking about fallacies, weren't they? So, yeah, it's based on research. Uh, it's just fucking obvious, is it not? I mean, what in here? I'm just lucky that y'all didn't see it before I was born. All right. So anyway, the implication. So that see, we started these videos with that we were confused by the mind, by humans. We learned about it, learned the research, learned that, oh, the brain is a whole bunch of different cells interacting. Each one has dendrites and then has an axon terminal, input, output, cause, effect. Oh, okay. Evolution. Oh, okay. It's kind of depressing that like I'm constantly feeling like this is so because it's so counterintuitive to people. Everybody rejects it. Then you got people like my dad who could understand it, but who argue with me about it, who keep talking about, of course, there's a consciousness. What about the feeling of consciousness? Maybe it's quantum. It's inside of the it. The consciousness is inside of the it, and it's a singular thing. And all these its have quantum entanglement, and that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is an emergent phenomenon from this stuff. No, it's an emergent property. I can circle the its and go, well, that instance of consciousness, the ability to make a decision and execute that decision, that would be these streams here, these its here. Options were sent here, which then, based on other inputs, a certain option won out. Then that was sent to the motor neurons and blah, blah, blah. And then, and also words were assigned to it, so you could talk about it. Okay, and there's an internal image of it that's coming from here. That's this it. If 420, then purple, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's based on research. Anyway, so that's the synthesis. So that's good. So that's good. So should we stop now? Come up with a lot of different vocabulary. You've heard a lot of it in these videos. The MapIT, that was pretty cool. Tomorrow, maybe we'll try to do an actual example. So that's what I want to do today. Look at some videos of two people disagreeing or someone just making a claim that and then let's break it down. Let's figure out, what does that mean to break it down? How do we break it down? What kind of questions should we make a habit of asking ourselves? What kind of things should we make a habit of looking for? And then what do we do with those things? And blah blah. So that's what I want to do tomorrow. Dialysis, that's in the future. So we're gonna do Manalaris tomorrow. All right. So tomorrow it's all about Manalaris or MapIT. Okay. So making some maps showing how you can take a behavior, like a disagreement. You have person B, here's person A say something, person A says something, comes into person B. We can do a little map to imagine what the person B responded might have come out. And we can also look at, how do we evaluate that thing that came out. The one thing we have to remember is the agit, right, which is part of it theory. Because we know that the mind is dispersed, distributed, right? Well, then once we accept that, we can recognize, once we know that it's modular. My dad told me it was modular when I was 12, bro. Like, what do you mean is it based on research? So you've got like a bunch of, it's interacting, it's interacting, blah, blah, blah. Fuck. All right. It's here. That's the agit. That's a whole department. And it does not receive all information, nor does the information that it sends out get received by all of this. Just the basics, just fucking modularity, bro. So what we can know is that sometimes this whole department can get triggered by an it that goes like, oh, I think person A is wrong. So A is bad. Person A is wrong, let's say. These dudes don't need any other information. They don't get any other information, okay? All they know, I mean, they have a couple of words and so on, but the minimum to build a good enough sounding case to refute this person, even if that case won't sound good to these guys, for instance, really just has to sound good to these guys, and maybe these guys are going to check this. We can call the back. And then they're just going to grab the steering wheel and send out their counter argument. And these guys are asleep, bro, because an agit is often enough, especially a magit. A magit is not necessarily going to be, because it's not going to be yepped by the whole system. It's not going to be yepped by the whole system necessarily. And so we have to realize, wait a minute, but what triggered this? Because we're only going to hear from the lawyers. But why did the lawyers get called? Why in the system was A determined to be wrong? That's interesting as well, right? Because you can waste a lot of time just looking at what the agit produces. Question is, what in the system led to the agit? Okay. Why did the plaintiff decide that the defendant was wrong and that he needed to get some lawyers involved to prove that the defendant was wrong? What was the actual SUSIT? All right, so then that's what we're doing all right, we'll leave it there. That's good.